Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to another edition of Raising Our Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and today we have Professor Selena Bartlett. We're going to be talking about tools for keeping for parents for keeping their kids safe online. She's written a wonderful book called Being Seen. She is a professor, and her driving force behind her work is the urgent crisis of children's mental health. Crisis and safety online in 2024, a concern that disrupts her sleep and ignites a deep sense of emergency within her. The realization that in 2024, our children are not only safe anywhere online has propelled her into action. Disturbing scientific reports showing a significant increase in mental illness driven by the excess consumption of online sexual content, along with the negative impact of social media, highlight the crucial need for immediate intervention. Parents often the first and the only line of defense are grappling with the challenging of safeguarding their children. Her work is inspired by this urgent need to empower clinicians and educators, parents and carers with the knowledge, tools, strategies to protect their children from the myriad of threats that face online. It's driven by a commitment to transform the digital space into a safer, healthier environment for young people where their mental and emotional well-being is being protected. The mission is rooted in deep concern for the well-being of our children to desire to make a tangible difference, motivates her to keep developing and advocating for solutions that can address this present issue. Well, we're going to be talking about ADHD and a number of other things in here, but you see kids, especially babies, people handing them phones and handing them tablets as the babysitter, and then you see them. They don't understand it's a form of brainwashing, and it's changing the neurons in their brain. And it is so sad when you're out for dinner and you see a whole family on the phone instead of talking to each other. And then, of course, all this luring kids, pretending to be friends and luring them places. I remember at a show back in 2017, where at that point, what they knew of the sexual trade business was a $350 billion a year benefit to the creeps out there. And that was just with what they knew, never mind what was so very much underground. We're in troubled times, and we really do need to look at it and pay attention, because we are in the driving seat, but I think half the time people are lost and just don't know where to go. Welcome, Professor Selena.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sarah. It's a very important opportunity, and thank you for all the work you're doing. This is really important, so thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And yes, it is really important. My kids are all grown up, and I've got two grandbabies, 3 and almost 1, and a step granddaughter who's turning 10. She's more the one that I think is in the danger right now. My grandson's parents are very, very strict on how much time they get, what they watch, or anything else. And it's not used as a tool. Books are used as a tool. They read 6 or 7 or 8 books a day easily. So I think what it is that a lot of people are just not aware how dangerous it is. Or
Absolutely.
they think they're in charge, but they're not, because little kids press buttons.
Yeah. And I think that's the number one reason why I had to come out hard and strong and make it very much around this focus, Sarah, because as you know, I've been working as a neuroscientist for a long time, 3 decades of studying the brain around the world, driven by my sister's suffering with mental illness when she was 21, and back then that was the shame and the secrets that we weren't allowed to talk about, and this is now the new one.
Uh-huh.
And So I just want to say that to give the audience a little bit of perspective so that I want them, whoever's listening, and I'm assuming it's probably people that want to do the best for their children because they're the ones always looking for the material. And I hope that they would pass this on, the stuff we talk about today, to people that don't go looking for the material because they're the kids that are not protected right now.
Exactly.
Um, but the bottom line is my perspective on this is a mental health perspective, and then we can go into all of the things that are actually in reality happening online. But I want to welcome the conversation and let everyone know it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Please start this as you're listening to our conversation to take a deep breath. Don't shut down your brain because that will happen because all of us as parents and grandparents and everyone, we all want to run away from
Mm-hmm.
these conversations. They're awful conversations, but let's just start out slowly because I tend to race in a bit because like all of us, when we know something, we want to do something about it. And that just can push people away because they think, that's horrible conversation, that's not my children, go away.
Yeah.
And the other reaction is also, well, I've already raised my children, thank God. But for me, I have two, like you, Sarah. I have five kids between the age of 22 and 33 through a second marriage. None of them have had children yet, but they might.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us are looking after the next generation,
Yes.
in my opinion. We're all responsible for our society we're creating. It's not just about our nuclear family and whether we're
Mm-hmm.
lucky or not, in my opinion. This is on all of us as responsible people that want to give back a better place than we came into, which is actually not the case right now. We're heading to a situation probably for the first time in history, maybe. I don't know because I wasn't around, but I'm hearing statistics, but I don't know how true they are, that potentially we're not leaving behind something better than what we
Mm-hmm.
experienced in our generation. But I don't know. I don't know that for a
I
fact,
think
but
it's up to us. I think potentially, yes. If we carry on this trajectory that we're on right now, we're heading down a slippery road. But there's so many people raising that conscious, raising the awareness, knowing that we need to change systems. And those are the people that are kind of steering people in the right direction. And everybody wants to bring their child up in the best way possible. But
they
in
do.
this,
They love their children.
exactly, the chaos and the static and the angst and the anger and the stress and the everything else that's out there right now is kind of getting in the way, and people are feeling overwhelmed and overloaded.
They are.
And
Yes.
this is why you've written this book. This is why you're on a mission. Yes, I am going to plug our Forgotten Children book because it's the
Yes.
same mission.
Yeah.
Where we've addressed here 15 chapters on um, how we're letting our children down educationally, supporting them if they are differently abled. Why are so many children going out for fun, stabbing people to death because they're bored or they've become numb, right?
Can I say something here too to bolster what you're saying? It is because we're forgotten children
Yes,
ourselves.
yes, absolutely.
So it's very important that this is the bit of compassion and
Hmm.
love that is really important for all of us to be aware of, that we're all suffering as children, that we're across a whole millions of years of evolution. We came from the same place. We're all very, very interconnected, but we're becoming individualized related to consumerism and capitalism. And I'm not against raising people's out of poverty and distress and suffering. But it's just something to be mindful of, that the reason that we keep passing this on generationally is because, all of us have been through
Hmm.
multi-generational impacts of, we've had, I mean, we could go really high level here, but I know we probably shouldn't,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
we are actually all forgotten children.
Hmm. Yes.
And so one focus through this new knowledge that we have through, that's the beauty of science and
Hmm.
advances in technology. So on the good side of the technology advances in science is that we don't have to make it up anymore. We can actually learn how to
Hmm.
reparent ourselves so we can parent our children better. And
Yeah,
that's actually the best place to start. We don't need to keep giving children more stuff. They're getting adult, they're
overwhelmed.
getting, yeah, well, they're just getting told things that they shouldn't be hearing about in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like
They're not
we've
allowed to
lose.
be children. Mm.
No, they're not. They've got to be because of the dangers online, which we'll go
Yes.
into. Because we can go into that, but this is just such an important. This is the silver bullet everyone's looking for. So let's start with the silver bullet. The silver bullet is how we see our children.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, you've got to see yourself that
Mm.
you are that child and
Inner
you
child.
inherited that trauma from your
Yes.
family and you won't even know where it came from because it goes back hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right. And I can go through all of that and I won't for now, but just let you know that that's passed on through the neural networks in our brain. We remember subconsciously, they call it subconsciously. I don't because we can see the subconscious now through neuroimaging technology. We actually understand
Yes.
that we're a fully connected nervous system and we store these memories and then they come out in at the worst of our times when we're really stressed and traumatized or under fear, like and being we're bombarded with information now that we don't know where to turn. Like if you go to
Yes.
YouTube, there'll be about a million videos just to watch on how to recover from cardiac surgery
Mm-hmm.
or shoulder surgery, which is what I just had, as you know. I can go on there and find anything I want, but our brains want to find the things that suit us.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so we're bombarded with information that makes us stressed out. And then when we then raising a family, would you agree, Sarah, that for me personally, parenting was the hardest thing I've ever done and continue to do. And it was a very big struggle for me. And I'm just every little day human being, and I'm just learning as I go still every day about myself and the things I did. And I apologize to my daughter and son a
Yes.
lot.
Yes. Yes.
But it's that vulnerability that they need to hear
Yes.
too, because those conversations, those difficult conversations are where we might have gone wrong or not because we didn't know.
We
That
we
is
did it based with what we knew.
and
And
our
hindsight
parents,
is brilliant, but at the time, all
yeah,
you're doing is you're in the moment, and that moment is so
absolutely.
consistent, consistent, and consistent. And my daughter, when she had her son, she said, "Mom, how did you do this with three?" And I said, "I honestly don't know. I just did it because that's all you had time to do was just pay attention to what was happening in the moment."
Yes, and then you go back to your parents' generation, and
Hmm.
I do this a lot. And this is not this is the compassion piece. It's not dismissing the
Hmm.
trauma piece either. I want to make that really
Right.
clear that I'm not dismissing any of that because it does drive mental illness for
Hmm.
sure. What I'm saying here is that when we gain that perspective, and I often do this, I go back because of my training
Hmm.
and genetics and epigenetics, and then I go back once you get past the anger of certain things that
Yes.
happen, say, because my sister had schizophrenia and I worked it out to be multi-generational trauma and all of that through my work for decades. Um, so I want to put that out there. And so you get angry in the beginning, but then you have to take a really wide rung
Hmm.
perspective. And then I took a really deep dive back and I go, oh my goodness, my grandmother who raised me and when I was in high school for some time, she lost her mother when she was 7 years of age
Hmm.
in the middle of outback Queensland, Australia. And she had to raise seven of her brothers at the age of 7. She was the
Wow.
only girl.
Wow.
Oh, she had a sister, but her other sister was older and she didn't contribute. She raised 7 boys without washing machines or
Yeah.
dishwashers.
Yes.
They had sheep stations, and all those families had 9 to 12 children back then. And
Yes.
this is the colonization part of Australia's history. And I look at that and I think, oh my God, that's my grandmother.
Hmm.
And then I look at on my other side. Anyway, I can go down the family history. I'm just saying that what they had to do,
Yes.
and they had to suck it up.
Hmm.
And so we look at that as repressed emotions, but it was also survival. And so I look at us as a very strong, resilient species, and we will adapt. The pendulum has swung
Mm.
very, very far over, and the digitalization has really amped that up and
Yeah.
accelerated that. But I do believe, Sarah, in the goodness inside people. I
Hmm.
always have.
Hmm.
And sometimes you get distressed, especially when you know what I know about online exploitation and all
Uh-huh.
of that, which we'll talk about later. Um, but you still have to just reflect that the reason the world is okay, even though lots of things are bad, through the media showing us that, what I look around and see is the goodness in people. And that's why we're okay.
The
Because
everyday goodness. Mm,
I see people, and things don't get celebrated. They don't get
no,
put on media. They don't
no.
get talked about. But every day, like I got hit off my bike, right? I had four people stop.
Hmm.
They stayed with me until I was in the ambulance and they called my husband. They stopped, they did all sorts of things to help me. One of the guy was stoned that hit me off my bike. He stayed with me the whole time. Then a guy stopped, another guy with his daughter stopped, and they helped me. No
That's
one told
that's
them to
what
do
is
that.
no, but that's instinctually the village, right? We're
Exactly.
meant to
And
be
it's
the village. Look
Yeah,
out
and
for
it's
one another.
happening.
Yeah,
People are actually doing that,
yeah.
but it doesn't get
No.
celebrated or talked about. And so I take when we take this wide berth perspective, I'm like, that's why the world's actually okay. Do you know what I
And
mean?
and I,
Like
I, I agree with you. We don't see it on, and the thing is, if they did put anything out there on this mainstream media, people would think it's all fake news, right? And basically, what's happening is people that are coming from the heart, that really do care, that have a really beautiful conscience about being there for each other, they're resonating on a different frequency altogether, right? So the people that have chosen through pain, through angst, through lost child, for whatever the reason, that choose to stay in anger, choose to stay in hate, choose to stay in lack, because when they want power and they want opulence, it's because they feel lack. They've chosen to stay there, and we're so far apart. We can't help those people until they at least walk a little bit further forward and stand
yeah,
and
well,
kind of
what
get on that bridge.
Yeah, and but I look at it too, like they're all lost children,
Yes.
forgotten children, and so I don't want to harp on this one thing. I guess it's just because it's very relevant in my life, but I think it reflects the microcosm of how we actually live on a daily basis.
Hmm.
This guy had no helmet. He was totally stoned. He knocked me off my bike. I broke my shoulder, right? But he stayed with me, and if you're addicted to
Hmm.
drugs at this level at that age, you've gone through a lot of childhood trauma, and that's just my work. I know
Right.
that from a brain perspective. And then I look at that, he stopped. He stayed with
Yes.
me.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you could look at him as a broken person, or you could look at him like I see it every day. I see people doing amazing things to help
Exactly.
people. And I just think we need to start celebrating that more. And I do think people are yearning for very deep personal connections. And it came
Yes.
through COVID, but it came through the
Yep.
individualization of capitalism. It came through the technology, because once you're on your phone, it's addictive. And I'm as guilty as the next person.
Yep.
It's got beautiful advantages. Look, you and I talking on Zoom like this
Exactly.
on your podcast, and the work you get to celebrate and let other people hear into their ear pods that give us hope
Yeah.
wouldn't exist without the technology.
Exactly. And actually,
So
today is
it's
my
a
12th anniversary of doing this. And when I started
wow,
this platform,
congratulations.
thank you. June will be 11 years of my own network. When I started this, I had no
Yeah,
idea of the people I would meet or the impact
yeah.
that it would have, the stories that I would hear. But the beautiful thing is seeing how many people, despite what has happened to them, they discovered their courage, they discovered their strength, they discovered their abilities, and they were willing to work through whatever they were subjected to come out the other side as a person of choice, as a whole person. And now they turn around and help other people on that journey. And some of the things that some people have come about when we, talk about the sex trade and things like this, it's just been horrific, absolutely horrific. Yet at some point, this is why I say about crossing that road. At some point, they knew they wanted out of that. They didn't want to feel the pain anymore. They needed the help. And you can't really help people until they say, I am asking for help. Because if you impose it on them, they feel it's more of an attack or more of a blame shame thing.
A de-
Where,
yeah, well, their deficit in some form,
yes,
but no one really needs
the
them.
lack of, rather than somebody saying, I need help. This is them giving us permission. This is them giving themselves permission for whatever help it is they need to move forward. But in any form of healing, we've got to be proactive in it. People
It's
can't
so
heal us.
hard
And
to ask for help, isn't
I
it?
know,
Like
yes,
when when
the
you've
most
had
courageous
childhood
thing you'll
trauma.
ever do.
Yeah. Well, when you've had childhood trauma, and everyone's had it in
Yeah,
different forms, in different ways, and no one ever looks at neglect as a child. That's not
no,
even mentioned in the adverse childhood experiences work. but it's a big one. And now we have affluent neglect. So our children are being neglected by
Yeah.
everybody. And now because we've lost the village, we've lost anyway, we could go, I can talk about that in a million ways, but no one realizes that. And that's how my sister got, it's not the only cause. So there's no one thing. It's very, I want to
Yeah.
make that clear. It's very complicated. And there is also genetics. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like she would have a different set of genetics to me. But it's the combination that it's the protective layers of really effective having healthy adults and communities and societies around
Mm.
people that's very neurally protective,
Yeah.
neurologically
Yeah.
protective, and prevents the kind of the extremes that might purvey later in life. But because it's so disconnected in time, early childhood to later in life. No one ever joins the dots backwards, and no one likes to look into their family history or
Yeah.
the it's shame and secrets,
I've
and
just
that's
done a show
that's
on that. All the secrets
yeah,
get in the way,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I understand that. I
Yeah.
understand that. But unless we start these difficult conversations, we'll just keep passing it on generationally because
Exactly.
it's already in the memory networks, and that's kind of my most of my work and my podcasts and my other books and my research lab has all been dedicated to understanding that and then how to change it into conversations about brain health and fitness
Mm.
and how you need to optimize, and I hate that word, how you need to understand that your brain's a very powerful machine that can be trained more like a muscle than we currently treat it. We treat it more like something that's got to be tamed and talked about, and all
Mm.
the problems need to be. Oh, you have to keep talking about all the problems, and that's fine because Gabor Mate's work and all these people out there in the spaces have done a lot of effort to try and break down some of that. But there's also healing and neuroplasticity, which you talk about a lot. People
Mm.
have courage, but they're also retraining their brain by
Yes.
activating different neural circuits in their brain. And that is possible with the right coaching and mentorship and people support and connection. Like it is hard to do it on your own. Uh,
Yes.
and we need to do it together. And that's the beauty of podcasts and
Hmm.
writing books and
Yes.
new ways of thinking about it. But one thing, Sarah, that I've become very mindful of in these spaces of podcasting and YouTube and times of digitalization is that it's been overtaken by white male ideology that
Hmm.
this space, it's natural, it happens everywhere, right? They're just stronger, dominant, and we've become so evolutionarily tuned to male voices that they've really taken over the podcasting space and they've become gurufied, I guess is the word, and elevated beyond their expertise.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
because they might look a certain way
Yes.
and people start to believe what they're saying. They're selling all these products that are quite harmful to people who have never been tested. And
Mm.
I don't know if you've noticed that, but that's now coming undone a little bit, but
Yeah.
not a lot. And so they're taking in all these young males that are somewhat directionless because of the change in our society from
Mm.
plowing the fields and
Yeah.
having to use your physicality. And so it's just something that I've like, you have to be really careful how you use your voice because
Mm.
you don't know how people are interpreting what you're saying. And
Right.
so it's something I'm thinking deeply about how to approach that part of my work in a more meaningful, kind, compassionate way. And I don't want to be prescriptive because you don't really know who's listening and what they've been through. And I don't
Exactly.
want them to think it's their fault. And if
No.
only they trained this and that, then they'd be a
Yeah.
much better
No.
person.
No. No. That and every case is different. I just had a doctor on ear, nose, and throat that in actual fact lost his practice and has been blacklisted for for helping his patients holistically. Because he didn't fit into the medical mode. And so they blacklisted him. You've got to do medicine, which is prescription and procedures. When you say, I don't need to do that, I can use EFT, I can use education on nutrition and diet, which can change. Why do I want to subject them to all of this if there are other mediums for it? And of course, we're up against establishments where everything is money driven and it's not necessarily, you
It's
know,
also legally driven.
oh yeah, because money money buys everything, right?
No,
So,
just no, just because people sue doctors all the time.
oh yeah, exactly. Yes.
So, and we're a society that doesn't want to take responsibility for ourselves
Oh
too.
boy. And unfortunately, as I said about crossing that road, it's that yes, you may be in pain, horrible things have happened to you, you're in distress, but at some point you have to stand up and say, I want to do the work to heal. Whom can help me on this journey? But we've got to want it for ourselves. And it isn't about a quick pill or downloadable app or you do it. Come on, you fix me, you fix me. No, it's about here are the tools, here are the schools, skills, here's the knowledge that you can apply. And we've got you. We'll help you along your journey, but you've got to apply it. You have to
Yeah.
participate into your own life.
But it's very hard to do that in the beginning, isn't it? So that's why I
Yeah.
said, in as we start this podcast, that we've got to be much more graceful and compassionate to and meet people where they are, because it's a co-design process. Because we don't actually know where people are. Because if we come in and we've had a very privileged life or had a lot of love in our life, it's very hard to understand what it's like to have nothing, none of that, or to
Yes.
be abused as a child. It's very, very difficult to even get into understanding. I don't think anyway, that's a
Well, they
whole
can't
other
articulate
conversation.
it because that's what they've known and maybe have not ever known anything different.
And then you
You,
don't trust anyone at all
right.
because the brain's been trained that you should not do
Yes.
that. Anyway, so that's a whole other conversation. But in this space of 0 to 18 and looking after our future generations and stuff, one thing that people should be aware of, this is a really important thing. Just take a deep breath. There's no safe place for children online in 2024 right now.
Hmm.
So it's become very dangerous because, and you're going to say why? That sounds alarmist. It's actually not alarmist. It's because none of the technology can protect children because of the deluge of the
Yes. They can't keep up with it.
immersion
Hmm.
of all of us.
Hmm.
All of us are addicted to our technology
Hmm.
and the nature of how much money is being made. It's a
Mm.
$7 trillion industry. So every day, even if you think it's just Facebook, Instagram, and Meta that your kids are getting accessed by people selling them all sorts of stuff, it's actually not. Every day there's a new thing they can go to. So just when you think you're on top of something,
Yeah.
nothing. And there's all sorts of ways that people can get to the children now. Even like if you don't mind me saying this, but I'm approached by parents every day and no one wants to tell anyone. So in Australia, we're one of the leading countries for online child exploitation. And because we're wealthy and kids have access to cash on their phones, these things are happening really
Mm.
fast, within
Mm.
5 minutes because they're kids. Their
Mm.
brain doesn't fully develop until 25 if you're a boy and 22 if you're a girl. And it's quite different between people. And so we now treat our kids like they're little adults. And
Mhm.
so you'll see things like we just need to have safe conversations, how to help them be safe online. We need to teach them about sex and we need to teach them about online exploitation and who's a stranger, who's not a stranger. And we're having to now do that for 18-month-olds.
I know.
So what happened to childhood?
I know.
What happened to running in the trees,
Mm.
playing with your
Playing in
mates,
the
learning?
dirt. Mm.
Yeah, and things like that, because that is we are part of nature. We came from nature, we are
Yes.
nature. And soon as we separate our children now, we separated ages ago, but if we're now separating our children at younger in ages with material stuff that's not part of our nature, it's causing a mental health crisis where
Hmm.
children now younger and younger are getting medications
I
to
know.
medicate this and are being told that they're hyper. And I'm not saying that some of this doesn't exist because there's genetic evidence for a lot of different things
Mm.
and epigenetics. But we also know on the other side, and the scientific papers are starting to come out because it takes ages to do this kind of research, is that we are getting screen induced uh, impacts on mental health. And I
Mm.
mean ADHD, eating disorders, suicide, self harm,
Mm.
addiction, gaming addiction.
Mm.
Kids are getting sold fentanyl from
Yes.
social media. Gender fluidity is an issue that's partly for some people is being accelerated too by access to social media. because of the algorithms. So
Mm.
parents listening or adults listening or children listening know that your algorithm is self-generating.
Yes.
And so as soon as you click on something, that's you're going to get bombarded with the same
Oh,
material because the
yes.
whole idea is just to keep you there.
Mm.
And what's a
Mm.
better way and more seductive way than thinking they've got you, they understand you. These
Mm.
people, oh my God, no one else understands me like this does.
Yes.
These are my people. And that's what they're doing on purpose. And they're not, it's not people behind it. It's a completely large language model driven AI algorithm that's self-generating. And that's why it's so powerful and why we're all on it. And I've seen it too for myself. I've been
Mm.
lured in to vote thinking that, in the 2016 election, for example, in America, I'm also American because I was in the Bay Area for 20 years or so. I was driven to believe that Hillary Clinton was going to be a 98% chance of winning the election. I was in that first Cambridge Analytica Facebook bubble back then, and I was shocked to the core of how
Mm.
I was totally drawn into that.
Uh-huh.
And I vowed to myself to make sure I never let that happen to me again, at least at that kind of deep level of persuasion
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
belief. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't alone,
Right.
but you
No,
could
no.
so now put yourself in a
I
five-year-old's
know exactly.
brain.
They don't know how to discern. I mean, we do, but we get so sucked into the shiny object, right? And it's so easy to get sucked in or purchase this or follow that or get into a conversation there that you know you would never have outside of social media, right? And so we're already getting sucked in. So what with a 5-year-old, it's a shiny picture, it's a shiny this, it's a shiny that. They don't know any of the hooks on the other side. I mean,
So
quite
we
honestly,
don't,
that they don't need a phone until I gave my kids a phone when they were teenagers, so I could call them at any time and know where they were. But back then, it was the old Fido flip phone, and it didn't have all this internet and everything on it. Now they're walking around with a small computer.
yes. And so, for example, I have to touch this subject because it makes sure we cover it. So the dark web has been around
Hmm.
for a long time, but this algorithms and the AI and the potential there has really accelerated the dark web. And what that means, therefore, is that every device, every game, every app has a capacity somehow for children to be messaged.
Mm. Mm.
So Snapchat, for example, has disappearing messages and it has multiple lines of different messaging. So that's just one that parents are really struggling with because sports teams are being organized on Snapchat and kids are being felt like they're left out if they're not on Snapchat, especially in
Mm.
North
Yeah.
America and Canada. Um, the laws in Europe and others are much stronger than they are in the US and Australia. So
Hmm.
anyway, so on the dark web, what's happening right now and why I came out so strong is because I was shocked to see the numbers and it really went exponential in September of 23. And the police cannot do any, it's gone really out of their range of being able to do anything about. And so, for example, I'll just give you concrete examples of what's happening on the ground in family homes that no one wants to talk about right now because of the shame. It just reminds me of mental health issues.
Hmm.
Is so, for example, a 5-year-old might be playing a game called Pengu, which is where penguins play with each other, like bouncing around a field, or,
Hmm.
you're creating all of these, seems so innocent and so wonderful. And what can be a problem with that? And so a parent noticed. Just went to one of these talks about online exploitation, came home and then started to talk to her, this is a 5-year-old, about what the game was and what they were doing. And they learnt that the child said to her, oh, someone said, was someone on my group said, oh, let's have the penguins have makes, do sex together and
Mm.
start, pretending that they're having sex together. And then the person said, oh, let's meet somewhere.
Yeah.
And so the mother was flabbergasted and she only asked that question because of being aware
Made aware.
and
Yeah.
made aware. And so if without the awareness and we
Hmm.
think that kids are using it or being served the material we are,
Mm.
who are not native to this, all of this new, it's just bombardment.
Yes.
And the more kids
Saturation.
are online, the
Mm.
more they get to sell advertising, and it's a gaming
Yes.
device, right? It's a betting device. So that's one example of 5-year-old. So we have many 5-year-olds in Australia on porn sites now. We don't want to talk about that. There's self-generating child sex abuse material being sent around. So that's the latest. That's gone up exponentially in amount. And you're going to say to me, Sarah, why has it gone exponential? You talk a lot about this has been going on for a really long
Yes.
time. Well, so the reason is kids can self-generate their own material. And the way the pedophile networks and these clubs work is to avoid, to try and escape. So these clubs are like the mafia, they work together. So
Mm-hmm.
they share information, unlike you and I and all the families. We all operate silos and we don't like to talk about it. So this is the perfect vacuum storm where no one's talking about it because they're too afraid and it's shameful and it's a horrible topic. And no one can even get their head there, right? It's just like, oh my God. And it's definitely not my children. So
Mm-hmm.
in Australia, only 3% of parents think it could be their children.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to talk about it. So when someone comes to me or to other people and say, can you please go and tell your school that your son just got financially extorted, sextorted? No, he will kill me if I do that.
Exactly.
The Pengu game, the same thing. I said, can you please come on my podcast? We've got to let parents know this
Mm-hmm.
is happening. No. So unless we
Talk
work out
about it.
strategy, we
Mm.
need to raise the conversation. And so when I give talks like this and or to boards that are helping vulnerable children because they're the most targeted, they go, "Oh my God, I had no idea."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first step to it. It puts a layer of protection. So people that have worked in these spaces say the layer of protection for your children, grandchildren, and everyone else is the awareness factor that you have
Yes.
and the conversations you learn to have provide a protective layer because the people that are out there that are trying to get to your children know that there are no secrets in your family, know that you understand this, know that you're taking care of business. And so, people listening, two things. Just keep opening your mind. It's not your fault. It's no one's fault. We're all just little human beings making our way in the world, and no one would ever guess this would have happened because, like
Mm-hmm.
everything,
Exactly.
it's good and bad. The second thing is the awareness, start to pay attention. The third thing is please, no school devices, no phones for now. There's no safe place, no safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Just recognize that first. No safe place, no safe place for children in 2024 because of the immersive nature of it's everywhere. Therefore, immediately what you can do, just try and because it's impossible to ban this, right? You can't just say no fine straight
Yeah.
away and it's
Well,
too
they're
hard for
trying to ban
parents.
TikTok here in
Yeah,
America, right? They're
yeah,
trying,
I know.
but I don't know how successful they're going to be on that,
They're
but
not, it's going to be impossible because the technology's here. So what we can do is protect. So most of this part we're talking about right now is happening in family homes, not at schools, and it's happening in bedrooms and bathrooms.
mhm,
So the best thing you can do if you're listening, no matter if you're a grandparent, parent, any healthy adult, no phones or devices in bedrooms or bathrooms.
mhm, mhm,
No school devices for homework. And so, families that are successful, this is a protective layer. You're creating protection for your children. It's not that we want other kids to be unprotected.
right,
It's just something we can all do immediately.
mhm,
It's not easy, but it's not at the same. It's not the same as saying you can't ever have this, and it creates all of this horrible problem. Because how do you undo something that's big impact in your family, right? So
yeah,
the other second thing that families are really doing well with is charging their devices and phones in one spot. And in some cases, families are having to put their technology in safes because the kids sneak out at night to get to the charging
wow,
stations. Yeah, this is real happening on the ground every day
mhm.
because of the addictive. Think of drug addiction.
Yes, yes, yeah,
That's my expertise. You do stuff that you're not meant to do, right? It's harmful to you, but it gives you a lot of pleasure. And so overcoming the pleasure versus the harm, our brain's not driven for that. And so the phones and technology is so addictive and so seductive. It makes you feel so good. And it's a distraction because you don't have to go and do the hard things of actually going to meet people in real life or
Yes.
making friends, because that's social anxiety, which we all have. And it's really difficult.
Did we
So the
used to have
phones,
that social anxiety? Because,
yes, we've had it forever. Yes.
but
It's a
maybe because,
fundamental.
well, maybe because we were thrown out in the street to play with the other kids that, we
No, it's
made
just
it.
part of that. It's part of our social evolution, social psychology. It's existed our whole life. It happens in all species. So
And I
it's
think
the
we got
fear.
over it quicker or made connections better, when we were outside playing. I mean, if we don't see our kids in the yard now, we freak out. Immediately we think the worst. But when I grew up, I would take my doll's pram all over the neighborhood on my own, and there wasn't the fear of kidnapping or the fear of anything
I
else.
know, but that's all fake. That's driven by media. That fear of being taken away. Because in here, over here, we have two, like, people being picked up from their school in big cars,
Hmm.
private schools and all schools almost. And so there's a huge lineup to pick up the kids, but the kids get in the car, they're on their phone, and
And
that's the
they,
most dangerous place on ever that
right.
existed ever, because they've got now access to the whole world of people.
Hmm. And
Anyways,
all
that's
and
a whole
everything
other
about them. That's the thing. It's I would say don't put on social media what you A don't
anything.
own or what could come back on you, right?
Yes, please don't, because it's going to, because they're using AI to retake images,
Hmm.
and it's all self-generated material, and it makes a lot of money online, as you already alluded to. But now it's making more money than people selling drugs in Australia as well. This
Hmm.
self-generated getting, I don't know if I finished the conversation, but pedophile networks, to stay in them to prevent FBI and Interpol, because they're always being targeted to try and capture the really devastating,
Yeah.
really large perpetrators, that both it's on offline as well. Um, to stay in that club rate so you don't get caught, you need to upload new child material every month.
Oh.
And there's millions of people in these clubs. So how
Mm.
do you get access without getting physical access? As we've had more of these conversations, right? It's getting harder to get
Yeah.
physical. There's more safeguarding conversations in all the places people would normally go, whether it's churches, schools, preschools, scouts, all the places that you would go to get access to children, is getting harder. It's still happening, but it's much harder. And so
Mm.
that's why someone said to me I needed to update my knowledge to 2024. So it's much easier to get to children in phones, in bedrooms and bathrooms, and have them take photos and perform all sorts of things, and get that material every month, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why there's been an explosion.
Mm.
And that's why the only safeguarding opportunity we have are families, and
Mm.
not families, I mean healthy adults that are willing to open their mind to this conversation, to actually protect our younger generation, not just your own kids, everyone's kids. Okay, so the other thing that you can do, because parents don't like this, and then if you say anything about technology or phones, because it's our new religion,
Mm.
people think you're a hippie. So if you go to your network of families and
I was a
parents,
hippie. I am a hippie. What does that mean?
well, people
I
don't
use
want to be.
technology.
Yeah, but no, but people, no, but when you ban, like, if you say that you want to be vegan or
All
vegetarian,
right. Yes. I'm
and like
80% that.
it's just this, it's the social zeitgeist at the
Right.
time. But you got to
Yeah.
put your mind into being a young parent raising kids right now in 2024, where we're embedded in technology and we're told the future is technology. The only jobs are going to be in technology. If you're not doing that, then you're going to have no job.
Hmm.
Kind of, yeah, when you think of the Industrial Revolution, it was the same thing. You had to
Yes.
work in a
Yes.
factory. You couldn't be on the farm anymore, because that was your way of raising your family's opportunities. That's what the whole world has been sold
Hmm.
in 2024. So parents, if they think they're taking away, they think if they're taking away technology, they're taking away their child's future.
Yeah. They're not
That's what they've
preparing
been.
them. Hmm.
So there's a difference between consumption and creation of technology, right? So the people that are actually not consuming the social media, but actually learning to code in a computer lab, is a complete, that's actually the future. That's a different kind of future. And plus AI is going to be coding as well. So what when parents come, like say they're listening to you, Sarah, to your podcast, and they go away and they go, I've got to tell my friends about this. I had no idea. So I
Hmm.
need to let them know that no phones in bathrooms and bedrooms because it's no safe place in 20. I'm telling you from talking to other parents in North America and other places, they're afraid to because they think that their parents, because immediate reaction is, that's really stupid. The future's technology. I can never do that. I'm not going to do that to my children. I'm not going to let them be left out of groups
Mm.
and all of this. So that's the immediate thing. So what we have to do is text our parents and blame the science.
Mm.
So most success is happening because you can't put this on social media because the algorithms downgrade this knowledge
Yes.
because of obvious reasons. So we need to use our own texting groups, our own parent networks. We need to spread this by word of mouth through texting, but say blame the science. Don't blame the technology, don't blame the whatever, just say that, oh, guess what I just learned? I learned that we have screen induced still face syndrome happening in babies, where
Mm.
babies are not learning, babies can't use their faces anymore um, because of
Yeah.
the phones and screens between people. It
Yes.
means that we've lost our ability to learn facial expressions and
Right.
movement.
Yes, I have
So,
seen this
so
evident in babies with people that are on the phone or a tablet the whole time. They're just like they've got a veil in front of them. Like they're not there. They're just not computing.
yes. So now we have to open still face baby clinics to teach babies how to use their faces.
Wow. Wow.
And so, because it makes sense, doesn't it? If you're breastfeeding, which, and we've all done,
Mm.
it's really hard, isn't it? Especially at 2 a.m. And you know, some people it could be for an hour, and that's hard. But now with the technology there, you would never ever be told or imagine that that would have an impact on your baby's brain development, would you?
Mm.
You just wouldn't even think that possible, but it's true, it's happening. And even in utero, because of the disconnection, because it's a natural, it's part of nature that the first thing a baby needs to do is gain the facial attention of the family around them, the
Mm.
people, the adults. And I don't mean family or parents, I mean a healthy
Yeah.
adult. So I want to put that out there to anyone listening because not everyone has family or parents. I want to make that really, really clear. It's about a healthy adult. Every child needs to know there's someone there that's
Mm.
going to ensure their survival as a
Hmm.
species.
Yes.
And so as soon as it pops out, its whole brain, uh, its whole brain landscape is dedicated to grabbing attention.
Mm.
So now if it's looking and it's only seeing a blank screen, it's like some kind of block. Like if
Yeah.
you're like put your mind into yourself into being the baby, not yourself,
Mm.
lying there. It's looking up, right? It's sucking, looking up. There's a whole strategy to do with brain development just around the breastfeeding, right?
Yes.
So now if we've got a screen, then that's lost.
Hmm.
So immediately the brain goes, oh my God, it goes into survival mode. And all of the anxiety, stress neural circuits are activated. So now you have a baby that's not getting the attention it needs, and it will do all sorts of other things to do
Yes.
that. And you see this playing out in all sorts of ways. And parents are really stressed out. One, because we're also addicted to our technology, so we're losing time.
Hmm.
We don't realize the time we're dedicating to that that would normally be dedicated to other things that are really important in the physical world. And so therefore we get overwhelmed because we're using huge amount of our day
Mm.
in a place that's not productive in the
Right.
end. So what I notice when you say this story and talk about still face syndrome in babies, everyone's like, oh my God, that's awful. But as soon as you talk about online exploitation, people go, oh, not talking about that.
I know. Yes. You know,
So it's
the
very
thing,
interesting time.
yeah, the thing is, I think what we have, well, I don't know how many millions of podcasts out there, and of course, since COVID, it just expanded like crazy. You know, the reason why I do this is to put out this information, and the thing is, once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. You may decide I'm not going to ignore it, but the seed has been
The
planted.
brain's heard it.
The brain heard it, and now you're going to start kind of being aware. You know, start watching other kids at a restaurant or
Just
at a
yes.
playground playing on the phone instead of getting out there and playing. on the swings or chasing a ball around, and you just start becoming aware. Where's the conversation? Where's the playtime? And when you are aware, then you begin to care, and then that's when the conversation starts really
Oh, I
growing.
like that. When you're aware, you
You
begin to
start to
care.
care. Yeah, yeah,
When you're aware, you start to care. And is that the biggest grain of truth
yeah.
bomb?
You see,
And
the
and
half
it,
the time we're just unaware.
yeah,
And no, we
exactly.
don't really want to know because, oh my God, it's just such an icky thing. Yes, it's icky.
But imagine
Absolutely
being,
icky.
but for a child, it's their mental health the rest of their life.
But it's even more than that. It's leaving that child victim to, from, as you said, from the screen to meeting someone. Right?
And that's just one
That's
of
a
the things.
whole other game thing that will scar them for life if they survive it, if they're not abducted
Yes.
and killed, which we see so much of.
But I want to put it out there too, Sarah. Just the hypersexualized material that's being delivered to children through those algorithms that people will not be aware of because they're not getting onto a child's device to see what they're
Yes.
being served. We know that hypersexualized content is changing their sex hormones in their brain.
Oh my God.
Just
Well,
see,
this
you
is why
look
we
at it
see children dressed and things like and so much more promiscuous than they used to be. 9, 10-year-olds, kind of sexually moving around. And it's like, you should be braiding your hair and playing with dolls and doing things like that. What is happening? Why, how have you become so sexualized so young?
because that's what they're shown from the age of 18 months on YouTube.
Mm,
So if you actually do a scan, so there's a screenome project going on at Stanford, and it's something my research lab's about to start as well. There's a technology out there where you can actually take 5-second screen captures of what adolescents are actually viewing rather than what we think they're viewing,
mm.
and then analyze that using AI technology over a period of time. Um, sorry, uh, Ella, I'm just on the phone on a podcast. I'll call you back. um, they're viewing this content, and you'll be shocked to see what the algorithms are actually serving them
Yeah.
compared to us, and how much they're switching between tasks and how many different things that they're looking at in a very short space of time.
Yes.
Their brain is just not, remember, we're part of nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at a tree.
Yes.
Look at a tree, it's there forever and it's very happy being there, doing its role.
Mm,
We're being totally, our whole brain's being destroyed through multi different channels. And we're doing that to now 18. I've been in a cafe, Sarah, before I was even aware of all of this, about 10 years ago in Berkeley. I watched an 18-month-old, and I didn't know any better, who was part of my group, navigating YouTube faster than I could.
mm. Yes. Remember, the joke now is like if you can't work it out, hand it to a kid, right? And the kid will know exactly how to use the device, and they are just being wired that way. Um, but I think one of an issue I want to address is that when we become so robotic with all of these things, and we're being driven by the algorithm, it is a form of brainwashing because it's taking away that free will, it's taking away the consciousness.
But
And
it's
with
actually changing the brain. It's
exactly,
actually,
so
we are
without
becoming that
right, so
algorithm.
without that consciousness, we're not a human being. We have become android like, right? And this is,
We have.
everybody's so worried about robots coming to take over. Hello, right?
We've already done it.
We've already
It's
done
already
it.
happened.
And the thing is, we've got
I
to be
know.
aware of that. And only if we spend time in, like children don't know how to spend time with themselves anymore, of being present with themselves, little storytelling with themselves, reading a book with themselves. It's constantly got to be entertained, constantly got to have some stimulation. And there's so much stimulation out there that they're overstimulated that the addiction is, I want more. I want more. It kind of reminds me of the movie Indiana Jones, the Crystal Skulls one, where the woman right at the end with all the skulls, I want more, give me more information, and they pour it in there until her head explodes, right? We
Yes,
reason we
definitely.
have computers because they can hold more information that we have access to when we need it. But we don't need to have this all put into us and changing our algorithm and that now we don't know how to use the information. We don't know how to use
Shocking,
it from a
isn't it?
conscious or from a wise point of view. We've just, we've become such drones.
Yes. So this is the hope. Let's finish on a lot of hope here. I believe in people and I believe pendulum
Mhm.
swings. And I also see a lot of a movement back in the sense that we are wise and smart at some level, and as we raise the awareness. And, all the tech company people, their children go to like Waldorf schools and
Yes.
schools that have no tech. And so that's something that you should be aware of,
Hmm.
that you're
Hmm.
giving your children stuff that they would never
Wouldn't,
give their own children
yeah.
because they know
Like
how
a drug
dangerous.
addict won't give their kids the same drug. They know
Yeah,
what it does, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so what I also see is a movement to minimize, to move to black and white screens, to move to dumb phones, to move to apps that minimize
Mm.
time, to screening and technology that's going to alert you to what you're actually looking at and how that's affecting you. And it's the nature of knowledge and education and raising boats, because once upon a time in the 1800s in Highlands of Scotland, they didn't even have a hypodermic syringe. They didn't have any way of treating infection.
No penicillin.
They used to hang people up in the corner in the street, and everyone would watch as they hang someone for stealing bread or
Hmm.
doing something like that. And I could go on in and we have to look at the historical facts of our evolution, and
Hmm.
we are survival of the species, human species. And yes, our technology is, and if you know how the brain works, we much prefer, and we get more clicks and notice through the negative messaging. And so we are very highly attuned to only look for the bad, and the media that's how we stay on the phones and watch certain TV shows and fill our brains like that. And that's the psychological addiction part of the phones. That's what they're doing. They're serving up. And you've noticed news is only negative. It never used to be
Yeah, I
always
just
just
don't watch
negative.
news. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So therefore, as we become more aware of what we're being served, I really do believe in the goodness inside humans.
Yes. That's the
And I
only way
see
it's
it
going to
every
save us. Yeah.
and I see it every day. We're already saved. I believe in people, and I believe that we will work out a way of uh, changing it. And we just weren't aware. None of us were aware, and I certainly wasn't.
Of the
That
real detriments of
Well,
what's
what
going
only
on.
happened, well, it just happened with, 2010 was the real swing to the
Mm.
exponential side, because we were all enamored with the goodness of connecting with people on
Yes.
Facebook. And, like we have to look at the reality of what happened. And then it's natural. Humans always work out how to capitalize, and they have done this that's why we're here today. We
Hmm.
started out, as Neanderthals and
Yes.
Homo
Yes.
sapien, and we domesticated the world through domesticating animals.
Mm.
And then we worked out how to optimize the domestication of animals, and that led to the white domination. So every part of history is the same story. We have to recognize that that's part of our human nature, and that we also will solve this.
And going back to the algorithm, and I say this all the time to people, is you are an algorithm. All right. And everything that is on social media is an algorithm. What you put out is what you're going to get back. So if you are consciously in a higher conscience, putting out that serves other people, putting out things that uplifts other people, responding to people that are in pain by being supportive, celebrating what people are doing, you're feeding an algorithm of positivity. Now,
Absolutely.
we know that internet's not going to go anywhere. AI is not going to go anywhere. It's here to stay. That's it. But we can change that algorithm of what we put out, what we respond to, our own algorithm. So the need, desperate need to live in a higher consciousness of awareness, of caringness, of kindness, of compassion, of love, and make sure that that is what we're channeling out, then that's what others will receive. The
But
reason
can
why
I
you've got so many people with hate and all that is because people get on the bandwagon and then they ride that hate thing until it explodes. Don't feed it. Don't pay attention to it.
I know, but can I just say the basis of our human nature and our evolution has been driven by our shadow, our ability to be jealous, envious, and all of those things.
It's
All of
time
us
for
have
us
that,
to evolve. It's time for us to realize that that is a default. What are we going to
but it's
do
but it's
about it?
ba but it's ba our basic nature that
Right.
it's another thing we don't like to admit in ourselves or see in
Yes.
ourselves is our shadow side.
Right.
Because on our light side of putting out love, what's the dark side of us doing that? Why are we doing that? Is that to get attention to, for ourselves because we didn't get it as a child? So there's a whole lot of, like, everyone's doing the best they can with the tools we have, but we do have a basic, all of us deep down all have this basic shadow, and we're doing it differently. And just that some people's shadow got really extended widely because of outside their ability. They were born into a situation that was
Mm-hmm.
completely outside their choice. It's just what they were born into. And so asking people to spread light when they were only receiving darkness over generations, by the way, multi-generations. And I could go down that pathway in Australia where people were murdered. We murdered 90% of our Indigenous natives in Australia.
Similar
You
type
know
of
what I
thing
mean?
with our indigenous here too. Yes.
So that's part of our nature.
Hmm. But
And
knowing that,
I
knowing
know,
we
but
have this
it's
tendency,
hard. It's hard
knowing
though.
that we can feed that, and knowing that it does not serve us, knowing that it makes us miserable, knowing that we don't want to pass that DNA pattern on, we can make a conscious choice.
We can. And I'm
But
with
we
you,
should, that's
Sarah.
the only way we're going to save humanity
I
is by
agree
stepping
with
up.
you.
And I'm
I
an
agree with
optimist,
you.
as you may gather. I believe we can, because the more and more we're aware of what's
But
holding us back, the more and more we can make a choice to elevate ourselves.
I agree, but I already think we already are like that. I think majority of people are actually like that. I think they have goodness inside them, and but they also have a shadow side, and the
But
media
I kind
and
of I call the shadow side contouring,
contouring.
outlining, right?
Right.
Right. So yes, it's there and it's adding shape to the light. But I mean, I spent a lot of time in the darkness when I lost my way for quite a while. And very much a spiritual person, and I just couldn't be there anymore. It was too painful for something that was going on. And I disappeared for around a year period into that darkness. And there was a light tunnel at the end that was constantly inviting me out. And it's like, no, to come out there is just too much pain to face, too much strife, too much struggle. The only way I can live in this struggle is that I cut off my empathy, my compassion, right? But when I
Absolutely.
came out, I first came out and it was blinding. The light was so blinding. And then I felt the shadows were chasing me. And then I got to a point where, no, it's okay, shadow. You're there. I'm always aware that you're there, but I'm not allowing you to have so much room. The light has been shed on you, and I'm diminishing you, but not obliterating you because I can't. I know it's there. I can go back into that darkness now without fear, without trepidation, because I am that light in the dark. But I had to take the journey to
Absolutely.
get there. And I know we are
I
capable,
know.
but it's up to us again. Again, everything is up to us. Do we want to come out of our darkness?
So I also think it's up to all of us together. So the neuroscience of two is demonstrating interbrain synchrony. So I'm sure there was someone that helped you through towards the light that may be imperceptible, like it might be a voice, it might be a person. I see that all the time, that we're better together. So the more we can get that deep personal social connections and help other people get those connections by creating environments like
Yes.
this, like groups, book clubs, whatever it is,
Podcast
we,
clubs.
yeah, we don't need to, you don't need to feel like you've got to suck this up and do it on your own. No, there's
No.
so many ways that we can create communities of support that allow people to just, get a tiny bit of light here and there. Um,
Find your
it's
vibe
it's
tribe.
very complicated. Yeah, it's very complicated. It's not something easy for someone to do when they're in the depths of that
I
darkness.
know,
When
I know.
especially when we're in a society that likes to knock people down in
Mm,
sense of social disadvantage, racism, sexism, all of those deep societal level things that have been going on for a long time.
Call them
People want to
societal
be,
dictations.
yeah, people want to be at the top, and I see that, but people at the top are not happy either once they
No,
get there because they realize there's not much there
no, I've
because they still
interviewed
have them.
them. I've
Yeah, because
interviewed them. I say, oh my God, I got there. I was making this amount of money, but I had no time to spend it. I had no time with my family. I became sick because I'm working for this money and this prestige and this light all the time, and I'm utterly miserable. Yeah.
yes, you hear that all the time if
Yes.
people are honest. But at the
Yes.
same time, it also offers them a lot of advantage. And so I think you're talking about this trickle down thing. What we're looking for was in the past, we believed in trickle down economics in the sense that if you did get lucky because you're born at the right time, you're
Mm,
a white male at a certain time,
yes.
you had a huge advantage. The idea was that you would give back to the people that had nothing, slavery, all the rest.
Yeah.
How you break from slavery is not that you just pull your bloody bootstraps up. Let's
Right.
face it, it's a bloody hard thing to do.
It is
And
the
the people that got lucky,
it's togetherness pulling your bootstraps up. You're not doing it
oh
alone.
my God.
Right.
Or just gifted, or just some lucky gift like athleticism or you're able to talk well.
Yes.
And so people, and it looks like you pulled your bootstraps up, so everyone else should be able to. No, there's also genetic advantages and
Yeah.
also opportunities because someone saw you or whatever. I just disagree that when you have systemic disadvantage, that people should be able to pull them. That is just such a old, totally
Yeah. And
garbage.
bootstraps, I don't like really necessarily the terminology that, but I do believe that when we're ready, the old saying, the teacher will come when the
Well, yeah, if
student
we're
is
ready,
ready.
yeah,
But I know,
exactly. Society gives you a food to eat that's not like
yeah,
KFC and
but then,
Burger
okay,
King.
but coming from your point then, if somebody's in a dark place, they cannot see the light at all, they're living in total negativity or have switched off from the world and they're in addiction and they don't know how to help themselves. And it doesn't matter what inspiration is around them that begets that invitation for them to walk out. How do you help somebody that's so far gone? And
I don't help them.
isn't there a responsibility for each and every one of us to at least want to come out? This is why I call it the cosmic 2x4, when you just bottom out so much. And with all the interviews I've done through the years where people have said, I was doing this, I was addicted to that, or this, that, etc. I mean, it's when I bottomed out, either illness or went to jail or did something where they finally, out of those ashes, rose up again. But it all seems to be the common theme of that you got to bottom out at some point and want to come out of those ashes, want to grow up again. And that is something I hold on to because I think if
Yes, I
people
agree.
want to, then we're there to help them. But how do you help them when they don't want to?
Because it's not our journey. It's not our time. It's their time.
Exactly. So
So
have to wait
someone
until
said
them
to,
want it.
well, no, I think that's like, I don't know. I just believe that everyone in the world has their own purpose and journey. And this goes to a different high level that I don't understand. I am a scientist, but I'm a scientist, which means I am not meant to understand things. And if I did, then I'm not a scientist.
Because
Science
the science always
changes.
poses another question.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we look at this at a bigger level and step back, someone said to me something that really resonated for me because I'm a people pleaser and want to help people to the point where I'm not helping them, I'm disabling them and giving myself a lot of credit
Mm-hmm.
and needing that to make myself feel good.
Yeah, that's the
Someone
wrong
said to,
agenda. Yeah,
and someone said to me, Selena, we need to let everyone understand that each person has a need for a purpose in their life.
exactly. Yeah,
And so we call it bottoming out, or is it their life journey?
yeah,
And that becomes their purpose is to help other people
yes.
find that instead of me thinking, who's not had the same thing happen, that I have an answer for them. I don't
No, but
really,
that
but I
that's
have
the
the capacity to provide my knowledge, and that's
but
my
that's the
role.
point. That's the point, is that this person has to walk their journey, find their courage, find their strength, find their abilities. What we do along the way is give them skills, tools, and knowledge to apply, or support, or cheerleading. It's their journey to take. We're just there to help them with what they need on that journey.
And then, but we just make the journey a bit easier. We don't
Yeah,
make it hard. We don't make it that I have 400 houses and they have none.
Right. No, no.
Meaning that we also have to become aware of our consumption and how it's creating the addiction in our society.
Yes.
So this is
Yes.
a different level of awareness. Like I could go across this in multiple ways, but we vote for people that allow us in Australia to have negative gearing because we like to have a tax advantage so we can have 10 properties to rent out.
Well, that
We
is
have
what's happening in America, right? That's the reason why people are voting for a particular person.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
each of us contribute in our own way for our own needs. So if we truly want to help people that have addiction, if
We
we
have to look at it
truly
as a
want,
whole.
it's always about what we're doing. If we want to have no forgotten children, if we want our
Mm.
children to be seen, we have to see ourselves and our contribution to
Yes.
our world and how we're creating.
We're all
If
here
we
paying
want to
rent.
have multiple, we're all paying rent, we're also wearing clothes, we want to have choices, we
No, but
want
I
to
mean,
have
we're
all
all
these
paying
things.
rent here on Earth. We're all here to contribute. Right? This is not a
Exactly.
free ride. We're all
But we're
here
also but we're also
to of service to one another.
yeah, but if we don't want addiction and we don't want mental illness and we want to have less homelessness and we don't want people to be in poverty, what are we willing to give up?
Yeah. Yes. There has
It's
to
not
be more of
about
a
them.
leveling field.
It's
Hmm.
not about them getting over addiction. Yes, it is at some level, but it is also we've created the society that allows this. And it
Yes.
starts all in the childhood. It starts in how our kids are parented. It starts in our dissolution of the village. It starts in our overconsumption. It starts
Yes.
in we are the contributors to all of that. Allow it through who we
Exactly.
vote for. We allow it because they're like fulfilling our needs of having a secure future. Us baby. I'm an X generation X, so I'm a sandwich generation. But baby boomers particularly have a lot to answer for in terms of the
Yes.
lack of willingness to give back to their luck of being born in that generation.
I
We
know.
have millennials and young people here that will have a way worse future
Yes.
than we had because of our lack of ability to give up on a few rentals so they have somewhere
Exactly.
to live, or our ability to have social policy that allows people to have a basic right of owning a home or having shelter. They don't have to own it, but I think there's a basic human right. We know that the bottom of that Maslow's hierarchy, if you really believe that, it's made up by some guy too. But basically, it's obvious that you need shelter, right? If you have shelter,
Yes.
and safety, you can go a long way to overcoming addiction and getting food for your family. And so we have this notion in terms of socialism, a social policy, that you shouldn't give people that are homeless money.
I know. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
and there's so many studies demonstrating that people that are homeless that get money choose to get their family shelter.
Hmm.
We have this notion as privileged people that they're going to use the money on addiction.
Well, but what we're doing here is arresting people in the States. They're arresting people that are feeding the homeless. Right?
I
There was a
know.
90-year-old that was being arrested because he was feeding the homeless. And he said, I'm going to come out and do
No,
it again. What we've done is lost our humanity. E-commerce is
exactly.
taken up, and it's that
Yeah,
we have to bring back, the conscious economy of compassion and
absolutely.
caring, and that um,
Yeah,
it is about. I mean, it just brings up my sister once called me a do-gooder communist because I was not about, the higher echelon not paying their dues to support the less fortunate. And how do we know that the less fortunate, if given the chance, can't create something and give us something that's going to be absolutely exemplary for humanity? But how will they ever know if they're always struggling for the next meal, for a roof over their head, or fighting where does the addiction come from? From,
so
running away from something. So
can I turn this on your head to your sister? How do the people that are really well off have destroyed our planet
yes,
with
yeah,
no recompense,
I
and
know.
they're buying bigger yachts and they're
La
going to
la la la
Mars.
la. Yes, exactly. As
So
long as
it's this
they're okay, that's okay. I mean, what we've done, we've bred an extreme narcissism out there. And as long as they're okay, they don't care who they use, as long as they've got what they've got, right? No one man needs billions of dollars. The people that got you there, it should be turned around and shared. You should be there seeding opportunities for other people. Why are we having homeless and hunger
and
in
why
this
should
day and
they
age?
choose? And they shouldn't be choosing what they put that money toward.
No, I mean, there should be one great big huge kitty of it goes out to, we have such a homeless problem here. The biggest problem we haven't got enough housing.
I
And then
know.
what we've got on the other side is people renting, stupiditous rent that families can't afford, right? And so a lot of people are working that are on the street are actually working. They just can't find a home.
Yeah, what's happening here in Australia too now.
And it's just it's got out of proportion. It's got out of balance. We need to bring the equilibrium back. And
Exactly.
unfortunately, we've got to stop feeding that kind of politics. And it isn't like, oh, well, I don't know who to vote for. I'm not going to vote for anyone. If you don't like what's happening, you've got to put your voice
So
forward.
so
It's not up to everyone else.
that goes to no decision is a decision.
Absolutely,
And it's actually a bigger
absolutely.
decision than making a decision.
Yes, I say abstaining from a choice is a choice. Absolutely.
And it's a bigger choice.
Yes.
And that's what I also learned about people pleasing and avoiding conflict. That's actually a massive choice and it creates more havoc and chaos around the world than actually being a more aggressive someone that faces conflict and difficult conversations
Yeah.
and learns like a social language how to navigate them in grace. That's actually a very difficult skill to have, and it actually changes the world rather than people pleasing and avoiding conflict and being nicey because you hate the fact that people might feel bad about what you're saying.
Yeah.
That actually creates way more chaos in our world than
But
anything
why
else.
but why are we also looking that if I disagree, I'm against you? Or,
Yes,
why can't we have critical thinking without feeling I'm criticizing you, right? It's that we've become so sensitive. And
yeah,
instead of
I
saying,
get
let's
that.
have a conversation, this isn't about you. Do not take it personally. This is about the collective us and the systems
Absolutely,
that are broken. And what are
absolutely.
we going to do? Because I say, the finger pointing. Oh, it's the government. Oh, it's this, it's that. There's three fingers pointing back at you, right? Your
Yeah.
onus, your responsibility. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, and that's a great place. You're in control of that. You can change that. That's the
Yes.
beauty.
And
You
we
can
start with
start so
ourselves.
small. Well, you start so small, it's not a big task at
Right.
all.
No.
But I think one thing, as we finish out, Sarah, one thing that all of us can do to see the world in a better light, from a brain perspective, is just smile at someone at a
Yeah.
checkout.
Yes.
Just say, ask someone how, like it goes back to my book Being Seen, which is
Yes.
the silver bullet for mental health in some sense, that everyone wants to feel like they're being seen,
Yes.
they're felt and they're understood. And
Yes.
we do this in the simplest of ways. When you're getting a coffee, just say to someone, give them a smile. And if you have social anxiety, I know how hard this is, you can just, like, as you build up, you start with just the smile or just a gaze into their eyes or just a recognition that they're a human and they exist. And you can do this to anybody at any time, at
Thank
work,
you. Thank
in
you.
families, at
Yes. Yes.
home. It's really simple. It's hard
Yeah.
to do if you've never done it. So I'm not saying it's like easy. It's hard, but then as you get used to it, it's like learning a language. And I'm learning this from listening and reading lots of different books, that most of us are communicating using not language, but how we look and how we behave, our non-language body posture
Hmm.
and things like that. So you can use that by just looking into somebody's eyes to say, I see you, even
Yes.
if I'm too scared to talk to you or anything. This builds over time into a skill set. And every single person on this planet wants to feel that they're being seen, that they're a
Absolutely.
human, and that
Yes.
they matter. And if you're
Yes.
looking for something, like my family member has addiction or whatever, and they've always been the one that's been looked down on. Like, you could go and work, I could tell you exactly why they have addiction. But if you want to immediately do something, is just to see them as a human being
Yeah.
and
Struggling.
recognize, yeah, and they're struggling. Well, there's good reason. Their brain's
Yeah.
been devastated by childhood trauma that's multi-generational plus genetics. They inherited that. We know that is a certain fact about addiction. So addiction is medication for stress and trauma.
Yes.
full stop.
Mhm.
So to
And
overcome
then, of
that, you
course,
have
what they're taking adds to the
no,
damage
it
of it
actually,
as well.
well, it adds to the damage, but it's their medication. It
Mhm.
relieves the trauma and stress. And
Yes.
I, after my surgery, I said, because I had to have general anesthesia for the first time and some opioids for the pain. And I said to my family when I was laughing my head off, saying, "Oh my God, I just got rid of all my childhood trauma."
Yes.
And my sister, who's a doctor in Sydney, said she called me. She goes, "That's why people take the drugs, Selena, and that's why you've got to stop taking them."
Yeah, exactly. And again, numerous shows on that where I was just taking it for an operation. And then I just
Oh,
needed more and more. And I've been on it 20 years, or it led to me with a gun under my pillow, and selling it. So yes, it's
oh,
highly
that's
addictive.
interesting. Yeah, it is very addictive, but it's also very relieving for your
Yes,
trauma.
yes,
So that's the balancing act of the brain. So anyway, so out there, if we want to create this world, we just start simply, and I can tell you the magic potion of how people respond to you when they see that you're smiling at them,
yeah.
asking what they're up to, who's their, whatever they're doing. Eventually, as you get to know them more and more, you're going to the same place for coffee, the same person, or whatever it is. These simple acts of kindness or generosity and spirit, human nature, are the things that will change the world. And they already are, because people are doing that all the time out
Yes.
there.
They're
And just now
intoxicating.
yeah, become paying attention to that. Let's start paying attention to the goodness in people as well, as
Yeah.
because we all are just trying to make our way in this really stressful world in some sense. Living
We're
can
all
be
in it
suffering.
together, right?
Yes,
It doesn't matter
exactly.
where you're at in life or what you're going through in life. Simple compassion towards each other, simple kindness towards each other, simple, is there anything I can do? And if you can't, say, I'm sorry, I can't do that, but can I do anything else? Or can I find you somebody that can? It's knowing that people are willing to be there for you, because what's most people's problem? Nobody cares for me. I'm unlovable. I'm unwanted. I'm on this and that, because the societal's dictation on how we should live and how we should turn up in the world has become it. Like, how many likes do you have? How much money do you have? Who are you dating? What are you wearing? Have you had a boob job? All of these things have become more important. I call that the outside living. If you really want to know the true enrichment and abundance of life, it's inside living. It's living from the inside by being connected to your heart, your spirit, your consciousness, and allowing that compass to drive you forward in everything that you do. Because when from that state of kindness, caring, and even love, you can't knowingly hurt anyone else. To do so hurts you.
And to recognize how strong we are as a species and
We're
how far we've
incredibly
come.
strong. We haven't lasted this long. Despite what we keep doing to ourselves, we keep obliterating ourselves off this planet with one war and one this and one that after that. How about we turn, instead of obliterating, embracing, and just see, give it a try. Give
I
it a
know it's hard.
try.
I can't even imagine. I often think about that. What would the world be like if everyone was kind to
I
each other?
know we would all be in shock, but what a difference it would make.
The
I'd like,
problem is this the shadow nature of our human species, unfortunately, is
well, it's
really
because it's
baked
been
in.
fed. It's
No,
because
it's part of our nature. Like it's
yes,
in
but
our
I still
genes,
don't
for
believe it has
survival.
to win. I believe it could be the
I think it
control, but not
does. I
dictate
think
us.
it, I know, I think
So
it does.
you're saying there's no hope then that we're all going to go back to that
No, no,
reset?
no, no, no. No, there's huge hope because we're not all dead.
Right.
Because of our human nature of having to have more and expand and build and develop, and that's where we all came from, domestication of animals that led to the domination of the world with guns, germs and steel. That's Jared Diamond's work and everything. We are still here, aren't we? And we've proliferated. We have 8 to 10 billion, although that's now about to turn around because people aren't having children anymore at the same amount. But we are 10 billion people are surviving people. So if because we know that we have nuclear weapons and we have people that are quite out there in control of them, we could just have all been dead by now. So
Yes.
there is a lot of human nature that's also really good. I'm just saying that it'd be Pollyanna to because you see this in Buddhism and other places where they're trying to generate this idea, but then they come and get proliferated by pretending that there's no dark shadow of people and we will always get rid of it.
Right. I
That's
think it's
just
the
not true.
balance. It's the
Yes, it's
balance.
a recognition
Yeah.
of the
Yeah. As I say,
reality.
it's the contour. I know it's there, but I'm not going to
Yeah,
give it the power.
I know, but that's because you're in a different state to the
Yes,
majority of
I had to
the
get
people
here.
that want the power, though.
Yeah.
There's many people that want the power. They don't care. They have no care. They just, that's
No
their,
conscience. Yeah. I
well, you know
know.
how we talk about life paths? They're okay with that life path.
Mm,
And so they're going to die and they're going to, God knows what will happen. I don't know any of that, but I'm just saying that they die happy about that.
yeah.
And it's
They'll
hard to come
they'll
up with
they
that
will
reality.
die right because it doesn't matter how much you can say
Well,
to them
because
it's wrong.
and we
Yeah.
don't, well, we don't really know what's right because we're just an evolving species. We really don't, like what is right in our evolution. It's like nature, it's a survival of the species. We are like the trees, but unlike trees and animals, we actually cooperate across species and we've expanded our to
But you
eight
don't
to
see
10.
trees trying to annihilate each other.
Well, that you do actually.
Oh, really?
Yes, you do. And also animal species annihilate each other all the
Right.
time.
And
And they
yes,
eat
there
each
is
other
the
even within species and animal and humans, like there's cannibals in Papua New Guinea that eat
mhm,
each other. And that's how
right.
we discovered a certain disease because scientists went in there and discovered that they were eating brains of these people from their families that from part of, cannibalism has been around for a long time before we
Yes.
knew better. So
Yeah.
we are a very violent species. And even Jane Goodall changed her mind, when she went into Gombe
Mhm.
and she came back and came up with these huge discoveries where she could see them actually creating and making tools. And that's what changed our mind about the animal intelligence, And so, but what she went back to, thinking that they were all more, grooming each other in a nice way and being territorial and looking after each other. But then when she went back another time, I don't know if you saw this in her documentary, they actually killed each other
Yes.
for territory.
Yes.
And that shocked her, and she
Yeah.
changed her mind about our violent nature too.
But it
So it
wasn't
wasn't.
the leading thing. It, became a territorial thing, became something. But I think what it is we as a human species seem to lead with this.
No,
Uh,
I'm a little bit.
I, you know, I believe that there are far more good people than there are people that want to have the power. But I think that for some people, it most certainly the power is all, whatever that power is, the power is all. Where there are other people that look at it as empowering all
But
is
remember,
much
it's not the
stronger.
people; it's the genetics.
Yeah. But again,
That's what
once
that.
we're
That's
aware
what.
of these
No, but these,
tendencies,
no, no. But think about this. They don't have any neural connections that allow them to do that.
so there we have no help of choosing
We
our
have
path.
we have help in choosing our path, but not. But everyone is in a different path.
Right.
So there's
That
some
obviously different levels
pathways.
of growth.
So that's what sociopathy is, psychopathy. Like, how can someone murder someone? How can someone do child
Yeah.
abuse? How can do all these
Yeah.
sort of things? So, right? It's like we in our space of you and I who like to spread the light and love and everything, it's very hard to understand until you read all to really get into that pathway of the dark shadow side of people and see it's in all of us. But there's some people where it's so far the other side, there is no, and you'll hear this from people in these spaces that are working with perpetrators and other, there is no change for that person going to
No,
happen.
no. Yeah.
And we have to accept that fact that
Yes.
that's part of our human species.
Right. I'm
And
just
so
saying that
having
we can
laws
we
and
can we can weigh things up a little bit more and not be so near-thundercal and perhaps be a little more on the
I
other
don't
side.
know. I agree with you. I'd love that too. But I think that also being practical and in the reality of what we're actually facing also allows us to handle things more effectively. Why we need law and order, why we need police, why we need certain things because of our human nature that is quite destructive too.
Mm,
Even if we want to go out there and spread the light and love, and there is just some simple facts that we have to be aware of that are really hard to face in my world of wanting to have this beautiful world. Um, I just don't think it's the nature of our planet and the way we have to survive because survival is quite challenging, I think. like, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like putting a life together of a home and kids that are kind of healthy, even in the background of genetics and evolution, is actually really hard. And we don't give that enough credit for how hard it is to put life together,
Yes.
where you can pay your bills, where you
Mm-hmm.
can, across your whole lifespan, because we've
Exactly.
become, once upon a time we had more social security.
Mm-hmm.
If
Again,
you
we
know
have
what I
more
mean.
the village of people looking out for each other, right?
Yeah, that was the society that we were aiming for,
Mm-hmm.
where there was this economic compact. But what happened was the population statistics and demography changed. So if you look at the overall population and how it's changed in 50 years, we now have a huge top part of the population and a diminishing foundation for tax purposes to fund a large number of people living a lot longer and a fewer people having children.
Yeah,
So if you look at the
I've
birth
got
gap,
those.
um, the Stephen Schwartz work of the birthgap.org, he's published a lot of work on this. He's got a documentary on it called Birth Gap, and no one wants to talk about this either, but most of the populations are diminishing, and the only populations that are going to be remaining in large numbers in youth in the future in sub-Saharan Africa. Most of our populations are diminishing. So we're going, and in Japan, for example, and South Korea, which is at the bleeding edge of this, they have old people in apartment buildings jumping out of their buildings because all of their village is gone because they don't even have schools there anymore. They've had to close all the schools,
Mm,
and they have 90-year-olds where their children aren't having children.
right.
So who's going to pay for the medical? You know
Or
how big
even
the
this more,
medical
I live
is.
with a 90-year-old, and yes, it's like she's got no family. And
Yeah.
I'm actually moving and trying to find somebody who's going to fit my space. And it's difficult because I do a lot for her and finding somebody that's going to come in and do the same thing. But this, it's going to be the story of so many people who don't have family or don't have children. And they need to look at that and go, well, what can I put in place? This is a scary thought, which I learned the other day. This couple went into a retirement home and they paid the retirement home 1.2 million, thinking it
Yeah,
will
I
last
know.
them their life, right?
I know.
They outlived it and they're now in the basement in cots and they're in the hundreds.
Are you serious?
Serious. That's how disrespectful of life they are. Instead of going, you've already paid us, mate. Maybe downsize the room, but not a cot in the basement because they outlived it.
Well,
And I think of people, one of the things,
that
yeah,
speaks to everything we've said about human nature.
yes. Well, and I think is with human nature wasn't about the power, money. I think if we could change the way we look at our e-commerce and look at it as the enrichment of people rather than the enrichment of the bank account, we would find more fruitfulness in humanity that isn't being held back by money, and how much contribution and how much creativity we would find if it wasn't constantly the dollar being the dictator.
Yes, well, you can thank American capitalism.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
spread the world around. There are lots of like, can I just say too, there's a lot of, I'm American as well, and I lived in the Bay Area for a long time. My son's in San Francisco and he's in AI and went to Berkeley and stuff like I raised my children in Berkeley in America. And I'm Australian and I grew up here. And I can tell you there's lots of places in the world where it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling you here, even though we've got a lot of problems, we have a lot of social capitalism. So we have free education, free healthcare in lots of parts of the world.
Yeah. We do here in Canada too, and having free healthcare. The only problem is we don't have doctors. In my province alone, there's 860,000 people without a doctor because we just don't have them, right? So, and shortage of housing. We don't have enough housing for anyone. They can't keep up.
Well, that's
So
because they're using migration as a
yes,
strategy because of people not having children too.
yes. As
That's what
baby
it's,
boomers go out,
and
there's no one to
Australia's
replace
doing
them.
that.
Yeah,
We're doing the same thing over here. We got exactly the same problems
right.
as well. But we
Yeah,
will find the solutions. We will
that's the
find the
point.
solutions because Canada and Australia and Scandinavia and England and other places, even though we've all got problems, there are also people looking for lots and lots of solutions. And I see that happening too. And I see a future that is going to be okay. We will work it out. I know that for sure because we always have. It used to be
Yes.
so much worse. It used to be so much worse. You would not want to have been born in the 1700s as
No.
a woman, for example, or even my mother's generation. She was not allowed to work. A lot of the women took Valium because they're bored.
Hmm.
They had to dress up to make dinner for their husband when they came home from work because they had such a hard job at work. You know what I mean? So everything changes with, and I believe in the advances of science and technology will also be used for good. There's always pendulum swings.
Yes.
And what's the worst case? I look at, if you want to go really doomsday, you can say, well, we're all going to blow each other up. We're going to hell in a handbasket. But the fact of the matter is, nature and plants, they will sustain themselves. They will rebuild.
Oh, yeah. I say,
They are very strong.
yeah.
They'll recreate. There'll be a few of us left, and we'll start again. So
Yes.
it's okay. So that's the beauty of evolution. We always are self-regenerating, even if we swing too far. We've had ice ages that have knocked us out. So we're a very strong species. We will regrow. And you saw that in Chernobyl. Like Chernobyl, they blew up the whole of Chernobyl, wiped out the whole population. Everyone had to leave. No humans left in that part of Russia. And then David Attenborough put this on his documentary, and they came back, and all the plants had regrown over all the
Yes.
buildings.
Yeah.
So we are a regenerating species. So it's never going to be over anyway.
No.
So that's the beauty of the
And let's
optimism that
just
we
hope
have.
that we kind of continue to evolve and learn and not keep going back to reset of the, neofundical thinking, and just understand that we're so much more intelligent than that, no matter what we're wired for, and that, we can reprogram,
Yeah.
right? Being
Well, we
aware
are
of the
every day,
programming
aren't
that,
we?
yeah. And I
Look
think
how
that I
fast
still
the
feel,
technology, we adapted to technology.
yeah. Well, I don't know, I
We're a
think we've,
very fast adapting species.
yes.
Remember when the first phones came out that were mobile, that were like
Oh, yeah.
bricks?
Oh,
Or
yes.
the
Yes. My
first
husband had one.
computer?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first computer you use, you're like,
Yes.
oh my God, how am I ever going to know how to use that? And now
Yes.
we all walk around with computers. Like, I really believe in our adaptation capacity.
Yeah.
And some of us just are more adaptable than others and very flexible and can adapt really quickly. And I really believe in just the nature of that because it's just the nature of how it exists in evolutionary terms over millions. We came from carbon, hydrogen, oxygen,
Hmm.
billions of years ago. We came from the stars. And so we are a very adaptable, growing species. I don't care what anyone says because when you just look around you, it doesn't look like that. But if you really think about it, we built all that.
Exactly. And the thing is, when you do look at a mere 100 years ago, how many people were dying, of, I mean, it's hard to believe, about 100, 120 years ago, how people didn't even know the washing of your hands. Somebody shared a story on the thing of one guy, a doctor, talking about if we wash our hands after using the bathroom, after doing this, after doing that, we will reduce disease. And he was put in jail and tortured for it,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
like simple things of
Exactly.
hygiene, right?
Yeah, but
How
then we
many
could,
centuries did we go through without understanding the importance of hygiene?
but can then I say then the pendulum goes, right? So now
Yeah,
they make an antibacterial hand wash,
yes,
which then creates huge allergic reactions in children that aren't in the dirt anymore.
right, exactly,
So we
exactly.
always swing a bit too far
And then we
and
find a
then
balance
we find a balance. Yeah.
until we start swinging again.
And we're swinging again, but we like to swing because it's the nature of our novelty. We need novelty in our life because doing the same thing every day can be a bit boring. And the
Right.
brain's always searching for that because it's a machine. It's a
Yes.
massive, amazing machine. And so it's always looking for more, 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 more because it doesn't want to sit
Well, that's
still.
why it needs a consciousness in the driver's seat, and
It
that you
does.
can look for more, but just make sure it's not destructive,
Yeah, but that's the
right?
leadership, right? That's why
Yeah.
everything starts with leadership. So
Yeah.
if you had good leaders in your organization, if we have good leaders in our politicians, if we have good leaders in our schools and our homes, we copy them. So
Well,
that's
that's
why it
that's what the problem is
always,
right now. The good ones are limited at the present moment, and this is where, that change is definitely needed.
it will
Why we need
happen.
to change the system. And I
It
think
will happen.
it's happening because you push people so far, so far, so far, and they rebel. Now we've had the pitchfork rebelling, but what we need now is the intellectual rebelling, the
It will
conscious
happen.
rebelling. Yeah,
It will happen,
because
Sarah.
it doesn't
Absolutely
happen with
positive.
everybody else doing it. We've got to change within ourselves to create the change around us.
but we don't have to change too much. We're really good inside.
Well, that's what, let it out. Don't be afraid
I
to let your kindness out.
I think they already are. I think people are kind. I think they're beautiful people. I think they're doing the best they can with the circumstances, and they're doing an amazing job in this world that's become so individual, and they're doing a great job. So you are already kind. It's just that we need to, trust our instincts that we are kind and not see ourselves as not kind. Because
Yeah.
when we see ourselves as kind, then we'll see other people as kind. But
Yes.
if we see
The
ourselves only our
algorithm.
if we only see our dark shadow
Yes.
and our envy, our jealousy, our not wanting other people to succeed, if we can step back and look at other people. I had this amazing quote that I used to put in my house when I recognized how I was passing on my parenting skills to my daughter when she was 14 through Michael Meaney's research from McGill, and how I wanted to step back and change that, and myself personally. So I changed the environment of my home first, and I put up this sign called "Never Let Anyone Dull My Sparkle" as I was
Mm,
going through a bad divorce with my 14-year-old daughter. Anyway, so I put up that sign, and I sang that to her boyfriend the other day over Easter. We were away in the forest for Easter, and he said to me, "No, I think it should be, don't ever dull someone else's sparkle."
yes. I like that. Yes.
I said to
Yeah.
him, that is the best idea and I've heard for a long time,
Hmm.
because we're always so focused on never let anyone dull our sparkle. We're
Hmm.
always so focused on ourselves and doing this, doing that. But what about if we just spent 5 minutes in every
Mm,
thought to put ourselves into the person we're talking to's
right.
face and say, what am I saying to that person because they look like they've just achieved something and I want to knock them down for that because I haven't?
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
don't even know you're doing it because it's such a natural part of our history of envy, jealousy,
Hmm.
because and you see
Let's
someone's
bring
got
that
10,000.
celebration back, right?
It's
Let's,
hard though. This
yeah.
is really hard. I find this really hard in my own personality to do that I'm working on. And I'm now 59 in another week. And I noticed it in myself in my 30s probably because I was in a competitive situation in University of California, San Francisco, running a big lab there. It's very competitive
Yeah.
and it's very cutthroat. And so you're in that environment and you have to be participating in the environment, otherwise you're just going to go down. But I remember really clearly one moment in a lab where a girl just got this paper accepted into this amazing journal, and I was still struggling with my experiments at the time. And I could feel it inside me, this jealousy. I could really feel it, like, oh, that's so, yeah, in my head, inside thoughts. That's awful. How dare she? How come she gets to do that? It's not, that kind of thinking in my head. And you know what I did? I don't know what made me do this, but I immediately stood up, went around and said, "Oh, congratulations. That is so fantastic. I'm so happy for you." All of it went away. So it
Hmm.
was such a massive learning experience
Yes,
for
that's
me
what I'm
in that
talking
moment.
about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that was a long time ago now, but I can still see it inside myself. And especially with now with social media, we didn't have it back then. That was in
Mm,
the 90s, early 2000s. Social media drives that in us
yeah.
because of this whole algorithm of keeping you there for likes, for comments, for reposts, for sponsorship, for it goes on and on and on. And it's such a money game and it's become individual that it's driving out that nature inside us that's really deep.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that it's hard. You said it all the time, consciousness, awareness,
Hmm. Hmm.
becoming, stepping back for 1 second and going, how can I elevate their light
Yes.
that, and that is not diminishing mine.
Right. And that's there's a show called here American Idol, and it's
I
a
know
sing
it was
right.
Australian Idol lately.
Right, right, of course. And so, right now they've just been at the Hollywood stage and then down to the 24. And it came down to these two girls that had to do a sing-off. One would stay, one would go. And the one sang very, very well. And then the other one sang the same song, incredible. And the girl just cried. The other one just cried. And the girl said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "I just wanted this very much, but you sang so much better. You deserve it." And that's, the honest thing. And I think we're seeing more and more of this now. And what it tells people, it's okay for you to fight for something. But if
And
you
also to
don't
be
get
second is really good.
exactly, exactly. But also to understand that if you don't get it, that isn't the end of days. It's another beautiful experience in your belt. It's another evolution on your journey, but recognizing gracefully, with grace, that someone else did a better job. And I think we were sore losers for so long. And I think actually through these shows, through many of the young people, they're showing us the grace. You are not less than because you didn't become first, right? You just weren't ready or it wasn't your time, but that doesn't mean it's over for you. I've done so many things in my life that I walked into completely blindly because I didn't know if I could do it or not. I taught myself into jobs, found out if I could do it when I got there or wanted to do it,
Yeah.
right? And then if I couldn't do it, fine, it's okay. I'm sorry, I agree with you. I can't do it. I'm out of here, right? But we become so competitive within ourselves, and who are we competing against?
But it's
Ultimately
not us.
ourselves.
It's not us. It's the culture.
Yes, it is. And I think, there's two words
And
I don't like is
they
competition and comparison. And I think those two are ones that if we're competing with people all the time or comparing all the time, we're making ourselves feel less than.
Can I just say one thing? When I went to America to work in a lab, my boss there said to me, Selena, you need to understand you're in America, you're not in Australia anymore.
Mm.
And you've got to get rid of your notions about fairness
Oh,
and
wow.
social capitalism. He said, you are now in America, it's all about prestige, status, and money.
Yes.
And he said to me, I
And
don't
that's
care
their
you,
downfall.
but he said to me, that's about where you went to school. You
Mm,
have to have gone to Harvard, Stanford, because
mm,
I'm a professor. That's the only thing that matters. You've got to publish in these journals. That's the only thing that matters. And
I know.
he said that to me over and over again because I was trying to collaborate, do teamwork, and build up other people as well with me, not just on my own. But he said, and that's kind of basically why I came back because I could see that I either had to go that pathway or I had to take a new one
Yeah.
because the way the brain works is you get shaped by the environments you choose.
Yes.
So, and
Yes.
you know how you're talking about if only people could step over to this side. Well, once you're in these environments and you choose to stay, so you choose to stay on a venture capital route of startup and everything, you've got to make money for the VC.
Yeah.
And you've got to have your exit strategies. You've got to turn that million they gave you, which is really nice, into $100 million for their investors. And that can be your only focus. And if you're not going to do that, don't do it
Right.
because that is the game you're playing.
Money again. Money and
It's
power
not
again.
about generating social
No.
media anxiety apps for children.
Right.
It's about developing a technology that gets a million, 10 million people subscribing to it so that you can turn 100 to a million, $100 million into $1 billion unicorn, whatever it is, the
Yes.
language of that
Yeah.
world. So every world that you choose is shaping you. And so you're making conscious choices without you realizing it into those pathways and stepping out. If you're a lawyer, for example, and you've got to be a partner, if you're in a big consulting firm, you've got to be a partner. And when you start to make that choice, that is the pathway that you've chosen.
Yeah. And that's still very much prevalent. But what I'm actually seeing now, some 20 odd years later from when you were there, is I have a business channel. And what I'm seeing now is people tired of that exploitation in many ways and tired of that path. And they have chosen to conduct their business in a different way.
Oh,
People,
yes.
planet for profit, not profit at the expense of people and planet. And they, a lot of these people, the 40-year-olds who say, I don't want to do it the way of my parents, or even people
Well,
that have
didn't we
been in
all
the
say
business.
that?
Well,
Didn't we
yeah,
all
but
say that?
yes, we all do say that, and that's kind of how things evolve, but how things also go out wrong as well. But I am seeing a pushback on that right now, and it's good to see. It's good to see these business practices where they believe it's about building relationships, it's about
And
giving good service
sustainability and not
and
killing the planet.
sustainability, and having, not just treating someone as a number, but looking at somebody as an identity. And that is beginning to change. And it always starts small and then gathers momentum. And I think that is the way of the future. And what you were subject to, yes, will still be around in certain areas. I do believe that it will die out because a lot to do with the millennials. They're just not buying into this crap.
Well, they can't because they've got no opportunity.
No.
We've killed them for housing. We're making them
Yes.
pay for education. There's a whole podcast from The Guardian out
Yeah.
called Full Story, how the millennials got screwed. And in
Yes.
Australia, it's all the policy settings that
Yeah.
created capital gains and negative gearing to get them out of housing, HEX to get them to pay for their education, and all of these other strategies that just happen to kill that generation's opportunities. So it's no wonder.
Yeah.
But as I said, that's the nature of evolution. We
Yes.
always swing and we swing back, and then but we need them to be the activators of this new world of
Mm.
sustainability, of making sure you're aware of the toilet paper and where it's going, and your toothpaste. Where's the water coming from?
Yes.
In our generation, we didn't have to think about that. It was just a given. And I
Mm.
remember thinking that in the kitchen when I turned on the tap and water would come flowing out and was clean and I can drink it. And I'm like, where did that water come from? And
Yeah.
how did we get this? And once upon a time, they had to walk
Yes.
deserts just to get water
Yeah.
and things like that. So that's why I believe in the nature of the pendulum.
Yes. And I think that swing is definitely up that way right now. And that's the swing I'm promoting. That's the swing that I'm pushing for. Um,
Great.
and but I'm
I'm with
profiling
you, Sarah.
uh, because we
And we
need
need
this to
young
swing.
people, don't we? We
Yes,
need
we
the young
do.
people's voices
Yes, and that's the
doing this.
delight. When I started this, it was more kind of 40-year-olds plus, and then now, 12 years later, I'm getting an awful lot of young people and the things that they're doing, the strides,
Fantastic.
it's absolutely wonderful. They're taking those strides, they're leaping forth with conviction of what needs to change. And they are the driving force, they are the leaders of the future, and it's wonderful to see. I want to
But
see
the younger
much more of them, but
generations
they're
have
there.
always driven the future. It's just
Yeah.
that we have less of them now and more older people that didn't die off like they used to.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
created the challenge because they took all the wealth with them.
Right. And I'm a baby boomer, so I'm 69. So yes, I'm not that I've got wealth. Sorry, folks. I've got nothing to share around. It's wisdom wealth that I share with everyone. But yes, I remember having a neighbor who said to me, I apologize to the next generation. He was like 70s, right? 70s and 80s, where it was all about opulence, make as much money as you can. And he said, now I've retired, I've realized how much I've screwed it over for the next generations.
Yeah, but they don't want any more sorries. They're sick of hearing that.
Yeah.
They want action. It's
Yes,
all very well
exactly.
to have all that money in your bank account, good on you, but what are you doing? And
Exactly.
sorry is empty. Sorry. It is. It's empty. It's a lack of, it's selfishness because then
Hmm.
you can just say sorry. Anyone can say sorry.
No, we
Give
want
give
action.
your money, give your money back to the people that need it then.
Exactly.
Go and buy housing, go and buy some social housing with all of that wealth. Sell some of those properties you have. You don't need
Yes.
80 properties with people that can't pay the rent giving you money. That is just such bad karma for you anyway. But I'm just saying, like, you can do something.
I 100% agree with you. It is your opulence for opulence sake is no longer accepted or revered. It is, in fact, it's actually become something held against you. So it is now something where, well, what are you going to do with it? Where's your accountability? We want to see action. And that pressure is now coming on them. And, the millennials, a lot of them, they don't want to be rich, rich, rich because they've seen they didn't have time with their parents because they're too busy making money. They want to be engaged with family. They want to have time for each other. They
Yeah,
want to play out in
they want
nature.
to do it now, but it's
Yes.
too late. It's
Yeah.
too late. It's too late. This is the thing that people have. Anyway, I could go on about this. Why should they have it now when they weren't willing to give it when they really needed it? And now because they've got time and they need the attention from their children, now they demand it. So that's
Yes.
called the sandwich generation. And
Hmm.
that's just so unfair
Yes.
and wrong. And I used to think old people were wise, and I'm not against old people. I used to love them. I was
I
raised
am
by
one.
amazing, yeah, I was raised, well, you're not really. I was raised by my grandparents, but they all passed. And what I discovered was old people were selfish.
Yeah.
They were jealous. They hated aging. They didn't want to provide their wisdom. They didn't want to help young people succeed. They wanted to keep it all for themselves.
Yeah.
And this really upset me because I was on the opposite feeling when I was in my 30s, that I had this big revere for older people I thought, oh my God, they must be so wise. But I was struck down in my professor early journey of trying to make it as a woman in science by older men
Yeah.
that sat in my office across from me and said, watch what you work on. I'm watching you. and they were my heroes that I went to
Yeah.
America on reading their textbooks. And
Yes.
they were 70
Yeah.
and they said to me, I am rich, I am famous.
I can do anything because I'm rich and famous.
They didn't want to help me
No, no,
succeed.
no.
I'm just like, oh my God, I thought that you would be wise and you'd just be here trying to get all these young people success in the
Mm.
labs and everything and want to help them with all your wealth and wiseness and richness in this world and your connections and networks. That was my naivety of
Well, that's
thinking
how
about,
it should be.
but it's
But yeah,
not.
no,
It
not
is not.
especially in America, it isn't. And to a great extent here in Canada as well. It's not that way at all. And this is where I
No,
think
they
the
actually
rebel
laugh.
is.
They call themselves dinks.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, and that they laugh at screwing the younger generation. I've
yes.
seen this. So let's
Mm.
be real about human nature too. And let's not elevate people, oh, woe is me. I have to handle all these medical issues and none of my kids are coming to see me and all of this stuff too. Let's face reality of what your expectation. I mean, you can probably might have to cut this out.
No, no, no. It's fact. And the thing is that I don't care how rich you are. I mean, here's a story of oh, I can't remember his name. Um, his sister and he lost their mother to cancer. The sister was I don't know if it was an aromatherapist, but something like that. And he co-owned the Lakers. They both got cancer. She decided to take an old Indian route called Two Feathers to cure her cancer. He
All
got
right.
what the money, best money could buy, and after 4 operations, they killed him. So there's your best money, there's all your fame, there's your riches, and you bought all the big best thing, and they killed him on the operating table. And where she came out with 32 tumors, put them down in front of her doctor and said, "There you are, I'm cancer free." And it cost her $132.
Yeah. I'm not against medicine and science, though. It definitely has
Oh
definitely
yeah,
lots
oh
of
yeah.
it.
I've just had a
Lot with
doctor on where, as I said, he was blacklisted, and there's a place for medical and there's a place for that. But what's happening is they're not allowing any other modalities in at all because it's all money driven. Everything is bottom
I no,
line.
I agree with you, but I just want to put out there that it's a very complicated thing, and there's a middle way that we have to find again. And it's not like politics where this is right and that's wrong.
No,
It's an, as you said, it's an interweaving because if I didn't have my shoulder surgery with an amazing surgeon that put in my plate and screws, I would have not be able to use the shoulder for the rest of my life.
exactly. That's what I said. Medicine has its place. And I've interviewed a number of doctors to say,
Very important to get that out there because that's
yes,
also happened that
yes,
this
but I'm saying
pendulum
this is
went.
coming from the doctors as well, saying their hands have been tied of how they treat
I get
patients.
it. No, I agree
And
with you.
they're
There's
being
a
told that
middle
it's
way.
money driven, money driven. So basically, it's pharmaceutical and it's accountants that are running medicine.
I agree
And
with you.
and the
And I'm a
humanity behind
pharmacist.
it is putting stopping them doing the work that they really want to do.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you, but I just don't want, there's also a whole counter group out there that's saying medicine's bad.
Oh no, definitely medicine is not bad.
It,
Over prescribing, relying on medicine alone. There are other modalities out there that you can do,
but
and
also taking,
being in corporate.
but also paying a lot of money to people that are selling supplements and procedures and approaches that are also bogus.
Yes, you've got to be buyer beware.
People are spending money over there and the same amount they're spending on pharmaceuticals and expecting an outcome too. And I've seen a lot of fraud and gurus and help life coaches and courses and all sorts of stuff, counselors, psychologists, so all of it that are playing into people's suffering.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so I
Again,
just want to put
buyer
it out there
beware.
that yeah, exactly. So when
You've
we
got
have
you've
these
got to do your own research, that's
but
the
people
thing.
can't though because they're not medically trained, and I understand that. So that's why you've got to have a middle way. That if you have something, there is a lot of evidence to support going to your doctor and getting some advice, and then also seeing how that goes before you just say doctors are all bad. Because
Oh
I
no.
think that's,
Yeah.
but
That's
also
the
people end up in these other places
well,
where people are telling them doctors are really bad, but I'm got the
Yeah.
solution.
And
And
again,
there's
that
so
comes
many
back to
books
your
on
due
this.
diligence, right? This is
It
you've
does,
got to
but people
take some
don't do it because
responsibility. Well, that's their problem then if they don't want to do it. At the point we
I
have to
know, but
take some
it's not also
accountability,
it's
you
not
know?
but it's also not their problem because of the algorithms that are being served by social media too,
Yeah,
because
but
there's
even
these
if people
voices.
weren't on social media and they found other mediums, there's a plenty of people that are really in what their medium is for the right reason because they really want to help people and it really does work. And what we're doing, we don't want to paint a brush over medical, saying it's bad and all doctors are bad. The same thing, we don't want to paint a brush over alternative medicine, which actually has been around for thousands of years and been used for thousands of years.
But it's
We don't
also
want,
killed a lot of people.
but
It's
so have
also
doctors.
killed a lot of
So,
people.
so have doctors. So have
But I'm
doctors.
just saying, yeah, but everyone, I'm just saying it has as well. And
Yes,
people have to understand there's a
that's why
middle
they've got
way.
to do their due diligence. This
And
is why they've got to do their own research.
but science has shown things that people are refusing, people are putting down science too, and it's got its issues as well. But we've just got to keep coming back to this middle way, this difficult conversation of we actually know what to do, but we don't want to do it. And that's because we want to not keep things simple, like just move your body, eat whole foods that are mainly plants and a bit
Exactly.
of this. We want to have an
Exactly.
extreme diet. We want, I mean, there are simple to sleep, there's really simple things that everyone can do, but we don't want to because of our addiction to take out food and I can go on and on. There are
You will
simple
find
things.
many holistic person who will completely agree with you that
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
dietitians or EFT, which is absolutely free and very easy to do. There's breathing techniques, there's meditation, there's so many different things that we can do for our own bodies, for our own psyche, for our own well-being that we
But we
don't
don't
need
need
to
a
go to a
life
doctor for.
and we don't need a life coach to sell us huge amount of money on their
No, no. If
coaching
somebody's going to
as
charge you
well.
a great deal of money for something, then they're not in it for you, they're in it for the money. But again, we don't paint the brush on all of them because some people have gone through the journey and this has become their meaningful purpose. And now, because they've gone through what they're helping you through, they know how to help you. So
I
again, I
agree.
think it's please pay attention. That's the reason I do podcasts. If you want to reach somebody for their services, listen to the podcast. Do you connect with them? Do you hear them? Do you like what they're saying? Now you can go look at their
And be very
site.
careful what you listen to because you see what happened with the Huberman podcast.
No, I didn't see that one. What
Well,
happened there?
I just had a huge article come out where he was with six different women all at the same time and telling them that they were all in monogamous relationships
Oh, right. Yeah,
and
that
then
a
people,
yeah, no.
well, he's got 10 million followers. Everyone's following
Exactly.
his protocols.
And yeah, I
And he's
mean,
a podcast, I'm
yeah, I
saying.
know
So we have,
there's several million podcasters out there, and you've got the people that are, coming from the mainstream media that are going over to that because they just take the hysteria with them. But again, well, bottom line is everything. What you feed will is what will grow. I choose not to feed the people that are out to rape, pillage, and kill us. I choose not to. Will I come across those people? Yes. What will I do when I meet those people? Well, I move on as fast as I can. I'm here to support the people that want to be supported with positive attitude that there is a solution, because I always believe there's a solution. I believe there's always an answer to something if we're willing to look for it, but they have to be able to help themselves. All I'm doing is giving assistance with knowledge and wisdom and skills and tools that others have acquired in their own life's journey that are now here to help other people. That's what my job is here to do. It's up to other people then to look at that person and decide if they want to go with that person or not, ask more questions, really look into what they're offering. Is it for you? Because at some point we do have to take accountability and not just go for the shiny thing. We have to look at it, trust your gut a lot more. But do your research on whether this is the right thing. And if everything is money upfront and money this and money that, then you know it's money driven. But if it's somebody says, let's have a talk. Am I right for you? Are you right for me? Can I really help you? Then I would say go through that door and have that talk. You've gone mute, dear. No, I can't hear you. Nope, I can't hear you. You've gone. Just unplug it.
how's that?
There you are. You're back.
That's my mic went off. Anyway, I have to go,
Right.
Sarah.
So will you tell people how they can get hold of you
Yes.
and how
So,
they can get hold of the book?
yes. So my book's called Being Seen, Master Parenting in the Digital Age. My podcast is called Thriving Minds, and I also have a podcast called Being Seen to match my new book.
Hmm.
My website is Prof, Prof, Selena, Selena, Bartlett, Bartlett.com. And that's where you can find everything. Please just know that you're good enough. You're
Hmm.
doing the best you can. And these resources and tools are just there to keep you safe. And specifically, what we're after right now is to look after our children because
Yes.
they're the next generation. And
Yep.
as Sarah said with her Forgotten Children work, and my work is all about the neuroscience of how to help you see yourself and be seen by others so that you have the capability to see children, all children, not just your own,
Yes.
so that we can create healthy societies, communities, and protected support to give them the best start and
Let them be
opportunity.
children. Let
And
them
let
be
them be
children.
children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's don't steal their childhood. They
Yeah.
shouldn't have to know about sex at 5, but we
No.
have to do it right now because we've created that world. But let's keep our children safe. Let's create the world we all want to be in. And that starts with us and no
It
one else.
does. 100% starts with us. But you don't have to do it alone. And there's plenty of help and support. You've just got to be willing to take the journey to discover it.
Yeah.
So get the book, learn all these facts and figures and everything else that you need to know. Because again, when you know, you learn to care, right? And when you
When you're
care, then you
aware,
take it. When you're aware, you care,
yeah, you
right?
care. I'm
And
going to,
that,
I'm putting that one out, Sarah. So
you
when this
take it.
podcast
Yes, take
out,
it.
that's going to, I'm creating the meme for you for that one. And a lovely tile because that is brilliant. When you are aware,
You
you
care.
can.
And then,
I'm
and when
going
you
to
care,
keep that one.
you start investigating, you start talking, you start sharing. And that's what we want. We want the conversation because with the conversation and that awareness, we then start making different choices. And that is the point. Make a different choice. If you don't know, then you're not going to make a good choice. If you do know, now you really can make a good choice. So that's all we want for you and
Congratulations
your
on
kids.
everything.
Thank you.
Congratulations on everything you're doing, Sarah, for such a
Right, I
long
got you.
time. It's not it's not easy to do, to
No,
maintain.
no, no, but
So thank
it's
you.
no, my pleasure. And it's all about bringing people who are bringing the information. And you know what people do with that information once it gets out there is out of my hands.
As
But
long as
it
they don't do harm to people.
no harm. Yeah,
So I've been thinking through this a lot because I've seen a lot of harm being done to people with when we all start out with good intentions, but we don't know where it lands. So that's the interesting thing about podcasting too. I'm trying to work out how I can approach it in a more graceful way to ensure that I don't go into someone's mind thinking that that creates in them something that makes them feel like, oh my God, I'm not good. I can't do that. How come she can do that? Or do you know what I mean? Like I have to be really mindful of just because I can do this, because of all the work I've done in my research and learnings, doesn't mean that's going to land for someone else that's
yeah,
never had that opportunity or never had the same supports that I have had and things like that. So I've got to be, that's how I'm thinking about my new podcasting world and what do I do next and how do I do it better and more caring. And so it's something I'm really thinking about. And it came through my broken arm and having to not move
yes,
and have to sit still
exactly.
instead of
Yes,
running every day.
cosmic two by four. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely was a cosmic two by
Yeah.
four. Let me tell you.
But if it brought about thought and if it brought about pause and it brought about redirection, then that's good. That's what it's about, right? And you know, this is called self-discovery wisdom. We all have wisdom accessible to us. It's through our life experience. It's also through the universe, energy source, what anybody you want to call it, wisdom. And that wisdom helps us understand our knowledge and what to do with our knowledge at the right time. But if we can come from the heart in everything that we do, trust the wisdom as a compass, let that spirit fly and allow that knowledge to be there when we need it, not dictate what it should be, but listen to what it is. Then we would have more clarity in our choices and moving forward. That's what it's about.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you, Sarah.
Great to meet you too. Take care of that shoulder. Don't
I
go
will.
trying doing things too soon, okay?
I know I've been actually quite good for me.
Because you've got physiotherapy to come now.
I have, yes. I am exactly. That's where I'm heading now.
Take it easy.
Anyway, thank
Allow
you.
the healing. Okay.
And you must come on my podcast, Sarah.
Oh, wonderful. Let me know. Absolutely. We had a
Fantastic.
really good kind
I'm
of
actually
talk here.
I'm actually happy to promote because I have a podcast for parenting on the Being Seen podcast.
Wonderful.
I'd like to talk about your Forgotten Children book. And then on
Yes,
my Thriving Minds podcast, I like to talk about this, your how you did this for 12 years and around your wisdom and what you've gathered through all of those interviews.
that would
So
be
I
wonderful.
would like to do it like that, if that's okay. So we'd put this one there and have that one over here.
That sounds fantastic. So, folks,
Right.
when whatever podcast I'm on with her, they will be on her show page for you to listen to as well.
Yeah.
So we keep the conversation going. And again, that's what it's about, folks. Keep the conversation going. Have a podcast party. You've read the book, you've listened to the podcast. Now, what did you all get from it? All right. Share the knowledge, share the wisdom, and allow it to expand out. That is what knowledge is for, to expand out. And then to know how to
Okay.
use it and to be aware so you can care.
Wow. Fantastic.
All right,
Thank
my
you.
dear, take care of yourself and I will hear from you. Okay.
Thanks,
And
Sarah. I'm
until
going to
next,
the US on Sunday for a few weeks if it's my birthday and I'm seeing my son and everything. So I'm going to be a bit off. I'm going to a conference and everything. So it won't be going on till May. That's
that's
okay.
fine. I'm moving. I'm taking 2 weeks off because I'm
Yeah.
moving. So
Yeah. Great.
end of May, June is fine. We've got plenty
Great.
of time. Okay.
Fantastic.
Until
Thank
next
you.
time, folks. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tab at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.